Okay. So we'll start with business ethics. So when I talk about ethics, yeah, let's just get it started. Let's just go down to ethics itself. So ethics in the context of business ethics considers the moral rights and wrongs of a decision. It focuses more on strategic level rather than the decision made by individual employees. All businesses have to make ethical decisions. So basically, when we talk about ethics, we're talking about the moral way of doing things, the required standards that you have to go through when you are at workplace. That is what ethics is all about. So the principle to know what is right and wrong, that is moral. So when you talk about ethics, ethics deals with the moral way of doing things. That's about ethics. Then let me see if there's anything you have to know better here. Every business should have a stated code of conduct within which employees are. That's all about ethics. So we go to ethics of strategic decisions. When we talk about strategic decisions, we're talking about plans towards the future, a long-term plan of a business. So when you're taking a strategic decision, you are taking a decision that's going to last longer. So let's see what they wrote here. It says strategic decisions are those that affect our business, how a business operates in the long term, like I told you. All businesses have to make ethical decisions as part of their corporate strategy, and these are usually the responsibility of senior management. So who are those that take strategic decisions in organizations or in business? They are the senior managers. So the senior management takes strategic decisions. And when you're talking about taking strategic decisions, you're talking about ethical strategic decisions. So what are the decisions that management or managers or directors have to take? What are they about? The first one, we have the environment. They said, in many countries, the law limits the amount of pollution or environmental damage a business can do. However, businesses must decide whether to adopt stricter measures to protect the environment. For example, should a business recycle materials, especially if this will lower profits? Multinational businesses often face lower environmental standards in developing countries. Should they lower their own environmental standards in such locations to take advantage of this? So, the first decision you have to take is basically the environment. And pollution damages the environment, and businesses, they do emit carbon. So it is left for the business to take a strategic decision on. They have to take a stance on what they want to do with the environment. Do they want to continue to pollute the environment and face the wrath of government, or do they want to find a better way of production that would allow them to be friendly to the environment? That is a decision they have to take. Here, whatever decision they take here, it has to go with the cost. That is what you have to put in your mind. But it is important for businesses to take decisions about the environment, because the environment is where they work. And based on what they do, they would always emit carbon to the air. And when carbon is being emitted to the air, it is pollution which affects the environment. Another decision is about animal rights. So there's some companies such as pharmaceutical companies or cosmetic manufacturers might use animals to test products. Animal rights groups argue this is unethical. So other companies such as food manufacturers or oil businesses can destroy habitats and endanger animals. Wildlife conservation groups argue against farming activities that destroy forests or other habitats, and oil installation that can pollute the environment, leading to destruction of animal and plant life. So for animal rights, the animals, they have the right to live. So whatever is going to hinder their life, whatever is going to hinder their existence, is seen as unethical. So businesses must take decisions about this. So especially the pharmaceutical companies, they must not test drugs, medicines on animals. They must not. It's unethical. Companies must not damage the water system to kill the fish in the river, or to put waste in the river. So all these things are considered as unethical. So it is left for businesses to take a stance on all these things. That is animal rights, which is also a strategic decision. The third one, Workers in developing countries. When you talk about workers in developing countries here, we're talking about how they exploit workers. So let's see what they wrote here. They said a number of companies have been criticized for exploiting workers in developing countries. Companies manufacture in countries with emerging economies because production costs are much lower. However, there's an ethical question about the extent to which low cost should be at the expense of workers. Businesses they see its opportunity to establish their factories, to establish their companies in developing economies. Why do they choose to do that? They choose to do that because they feel in developing economies, the demand for labor is less than the supply of labor. So they feel, yeah, it is that spot that they can really exploit workers. Labor is cheap. So it is unethical to start a business in an environment or in a location, because in that location, the labor or the reward for labor is cheaper. That is an unethical. That is what they are saying there. So businesses must take a strategic decision, ethical strategic decision regarding labor, regarding workers in developing economies, because they feel developing economies, they treat labor as so cheap. That's about workers. Then we go to corruption. When we talk about corruption, we're talking about you giving reward to people, giving bribe to people to be able to see things the way you see them. That is what corruption is about. So let's see what they wrote here. They say in some industries, bribes, money paid to persuade somebody to do what you want them to, might be used to persuade customers to sign contracts. It is argued this takes place in certain emerging economies where civil servants or government ministers want money from big business deals. The ethical question is whether it is right to use bribes even if a business knows that its competitors do. Corruption is one part, especially in emerging economies, developing economies. But is it ethical? Is it ethical for businesses to give bribes because their competitors do so? That is the question. It is unethical to give bribe. Get whatever you need to get it honorably. So if you are given bribe to persuade government ministers, to persuade civil servants to give you contracts, it is unethical. So if you are doing that because your competitors are doing so, you are both practicing unethical acts. That's about corruption. The new technologies. For new technology wouldn't be, it's not unethical to have new technology. But the problem about new technology is that the process of building this new technology can be unethical. That is the point there. So look at what they wrote. They said, most new products such as mobile phones or new chocolate bar do not cause ethical problems, but some technological development can be controversial. For example, nuclear power generation has been an issue since the 1950s. More recently, genetically modified crops have also been controversial due to their potential health risk and damage to the environment in the future. In the future, other biological processes such as cloning could also lead to strong ethical reactions. Technology is good, but the process through which we build the technology, the process of getting this technology might be unethical. That is the point they are making there. The next one, product availability. If a person cannot afford an expensive car or some other luxury goods, most would not see this as an ethical issue. But if someone is seriously ill and cannot afford drugs for treatment because pharmaceutical businesses charge such a high price, many would argue that this is an ethical issue. The direction of research is also important. So before going further, you not being able to afford a luxury car because it's expensive is not going to be considered as an unethical, because it is a luxury. It is not a necessity. But being unable to buy a medicine because the pharmaceutical company has raised the price, has increased the price, can be seen as unethical. That is the point about product availability. So The availability, making products that are necessity available is ethical. Making products that are necessity, not making products that are necessary, or not making products that are necessary to life available becomes an ethical issue. That is what the point is. Cars can be scarce, cars can be expensive, nobody cares about that. But food, clothing must be affordable. If they are not affordable, then we could talk about ethical instance. That is the point about product availability. Trading issues. The kind of countries you deal with, the kind of companies you deal with in other countries, it's also considered as ethical, an ethical issue. Some countries have been banned from international trade. So if your company starts dealing with companies in such country, then it is unethical. That is the point about trading issues. Is it clear? Is it clear, please?
Yes.
Do you have any question up to now?
No, but sir.
Yes.
For corruption.
Yeah.
Can it not be like solved?
You know, corruption is abstract. You wouldn't know. It would come as a form of gift.
Oh.
You might be holding a party now. You might be holding a birthday party, and because I need a contract from your company, from your ministry, I could offer you a cash gift. I could gift you a car.
Okay, I get it.
So when you get that, the next time I come up with my proposal, you would want to accept it because I've done something good and vital to you.
Yeah, I get it now.
All right. So we go to trade-offs now between profit and ethics. When a business has to take an ethical stance, it is worth noting that it has to come with a price. The price at which you are taking, the price at which comes with that ethical stance is a trade-off. So let's see what they wrote here. They wrote, a conflict can exist between ethical objectives and profitability, and the trade-off occurs when selection of one choice results in the loss of another. So there's always a trade-off. Whenever you decide to take an action, and as a result of that, you are losing out on something else. That is trade-offs. So this could happen when it comes to ethical stance. So let's go forward. So decisions to increase the income tax person. Okay, here it said, all right, this applies at all levels, from individuals through to the largest corporations and even governments. If I choose to buy a new car, the trade-off might be that I cannot have a holiday. The trade-off of a government decision to increase the income tax personnel allowance might be that it cannot afford to spend more money on a high-speed rail upgrade. Similarly, for businesses, trade-offs exist with any decision. Investing in a new production facility may mean that new vans cannot be purchased. The idea of such trade-off is particularly apparent when considering ethics. Is the cost of acting ethically and acceptance of lower profits? For businesses, acting ethically when not required to do so by the law can have a negative impact on profit in a number of ways. The result can be a trade-off. But before we go into those ways, the first thing we have to understand about trade-off is this. For individual, there's always a trade-off when you take an action, when you make a decision. Like you buying a car means you might not be able to go for holiday. That's a trade-off. For government's decision to increase allowance for civil servants might mean that government might not be able to take care of railway or maintain railway. That's trade-off. For businesses, investing in new production facility might mean that the worker's salary might not be increased, or the profit might be less. So the question is, why would businesses take ethical decisions when they are not supposed to? And as a result, their profit becomes less, and they give that as an excuse. Ethical decisions are supposed to be taken, yes, but you don't take these ethical decisions at the expense of your stakeholders when they are not needed. If there's no legislation stating that you take these decisions, then you shouldn't take them. That is the point. Do you get the point? Do you get the point, please?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we must not take ethical decisions if the law does not require us to take them. That is what they are saying about. So if you continue to take ethical decisions when the law does not require you to take it, what are the results? Number one, it can raise costs. For example, paying higher wages than is necessary to overseas workers increase cost. Having to find other ways than animal experiments to test a new drug might add to cost. Adopting an ethical code of practice can raise cost. Staff have to be made aware of the code and trained to implement it. It takes management time to prepare a code of practice. Paying workers more than a legal minimum directly increases cost. These ways, when you are doing what you are not supposed to do, when you are not told, you don't just increase salaries of workers because you just want to do that. If it's not required by law to do that, you don't necessarily have to do it, because when you do it, it becomes a cost, which might also cost the firm as a result of increasing prices. Two, it can reduce revenue, because as long as you incur more cost, you start thinking about how to increase profitability. To increase profitability, you might have to increase prices. And when you increase prices, it reduces your revenue, because customers are conscious about prices. They might not want to buy from you anymore. Then your revenue will reduce. So those are the consequence of taking ethical decisions where you are not required by law to take them. The first consequence is your cost will increase. The second one is your revenue will increase. We go into the advantages of you taking those ethical decisions, even if the law does not require you to take them. Number one, first, sustainable and ethical investments would boom your business. So companies, investors would like your company. They would want to work with your company, because they feel that your company is a company that takes ethical stance. They will be happy dealing with you. You're going to have a lot of investors because you are socially responsible. That's an advantage. The second one, some businesses promote their positive ethical business beliefs when marketing their products. Businesses face problems if they behave unethically and they face serious penalties for breaking law. You wouldn't have any problem with government because you have always taken ethical stance. That's an advantage. Then you can use that to market your product. So that's the advantage about you taking ethical stance. One, you can use this as a marketing method to improve your reputation in the market. And two, investors will really want to deal with you. Go to code of practice. When we talk about code of practice, here they said, for code of practice, what it implies is how employees respond to situations when it comes to ethical issues. How you respond to different situations, putting into mind, into consideration, ethical stance. So look at what they wrote here. They said, this explains how employees in the business should respond in situations where they encounter ethical issues. Ethical codes will differ from one business and one industry to another. However, they may contain statements about, one, environmental responsibility, your responsibility towards the environment. the way you deal with your customers and your suppliers, it has to be fair. It's important for you to compete, but when you are competing with competitors, you should do it fairly. Don't collide. Don't come up with price destruction. Don't give a lower price so that customers will buy from you when you know it is unethical, when you know that such price does not really speak of your cost. The workforce and responding fairly to their needs. Treat your workers fairly, respond to their needs. That's about code of practice. Do you have any question about that? Do you have any question about it, please?
No, sir.
Great. We go to pay and rewards. When we talk about pay, we're talking about remunerations. You have to pay your workers. Yes. So an important issue in the area of business ethics relates to pay and rewards. Remuneration is the reward for workers, such as pay, your wages, your salary. Businesses use pay and rewards for different purposes. Why do you have to reward your workers? Why do you have to pay them? Number one, to attract employees with the right skills, experience, and knowledge. So if you are paying, if you are rewarding if your company is a rewarding company, you're going to attract the best skilled workers, the most knowledgeable workers, the best experts in the industry would want to work with your company. That's the first advantage or the first purpose of you rewarding your workers. The second one, to reward and motivate existing workers. When your company when employers reward workers, especially existing workers, it means they would always want to stay. It means they will be motivated. The third one, it maximizes productivity level. It increases productivity. When you reward the workers, they want to put more effort, and that would increase productivity. Businesses need to make profit if they have to survive. Therefore, they will try to minimize cost. This will extend to labor costs, and most firms are not likely to pay higher wages if they can avoid it. However, although higher profits can be achieved by reducing the pay of employees within legal limits, is this ethical? Generally, it is the role of individual businesses to decide on rates of pay. An exception to this relates to low pay in some countries, such as the US, Australia, and India. A national minimum wage exists in others, such as Canada. There are legal minimum wages, but they may vary between different regions. So, what they are trying to say here is this. It is important for firms, for companies to make profit. Without profit, companies might not be able to survive. How do firms make profits? Firms can make profits when they are able to reduce their cost. Part of the cost is the labor cost. But we have to put in mind the labor should not be considered as a cost. Because when you see your workforce or when you see your staff as cost, it means you are not considering them as a value to the organization. But what can you do as a firm? Ensure you pay your workers the required minimum wage. Don't pay them below the minimum wage. You might not pay them above the minimum wage. By so doing, then it becomes ethical. But whenever you think about reducing labor wage to the extent that it's lower than the required minimum wage, then you'll be considered as an unethical business. That is the point there. Then we go to corporate social responsibility, CSR. When we talk about corporate social responsibility, it implies that you as a business, you put into consideration the interests of all your stakeholders. You think more of the stakeholders than even making profit. That is corporate social responsibility. So let's see what they wrote here. Some large businesses have responded to concern about CSR by auditing relevant activities. These audits may then be made available to the public in the corporate social responsibility report. In the same way that the financial accounts of the company are published, Auditing involves checking evidence against established standards. Auditors can then decide whether the evidence presented by the business is true and fair. So for corporate social responsibility, they audit you, they audit your ways, they audit how you behave towards your stakeholders. And when we talk about the stakeholders, we're talking about the investors, the employees, the environment, your competitors, your customers, how you behave with them. If evidence shows that you are being true and fair to them, then you are corporate socially responsible. Then what are the, so let's check about the indicators that makes a company to be corporate socially responsible. Number one, employment indicators. How well does the business treat its staff? How do you treat your workers? Do you treat them fairly? Do you meet up their needs? If you do so, then you are corporate socially responsible. Human rights indicators. How well does the company perform on human rights issues? Do you think about child labor? Do you discriminate? Is your company that type of company that does not discriminate? If you do not discriminate, that means you are socially responsible. Because discrimination is part of human rights. So you must not discriminate your workers regarding gender, regarding religion, regarding ethnic, or whatever it is. You must not. The community in which the business operates. What impact does the business have in the community? Do you give charities? Do you help the society that the business is? Business integrity and ethics. Do you behave morally? Do you treat the environment the way you're supposed to? Are you socially responsible? That's about business integrity. Are you trustworthy? Are you a business that do not give bribes? These are what we're talking about, ethical stance here. Product responsibility. Do you make your products available? Do you do the advertisements you do about your product? Are they true and fair? Are you sure you're not lying about your advertisement so that you can convince customers? The environment. How do you treat the environment? These are all social indicators. These are corporate social responsibility indicators. So all these things cut across what will make a company to be seen as corporate socially responsible or not seen as corporate socially responsible. So that's about chapter 16. Now, do you have any question about chapter 16?
No.
Is it clear better now?
Yeah.
All right. I have to end this first.
And what?
I have to end this first.
Okay.
And